Hello AP English students. This is Christy, Nicole, Danielle, Amanda, and Liz. We begin today's show with a reading of the poem London 1802 by William Wordsworth. Before we begin, here are a few vocab words that you will need to know. Milton, who was John Milton II, a former poet of England. Fen, which means wet or boggy land. Bower, which means garden. And dower, a natural gift or endowment.
Milton, thou shouldst be living at this hour. England hath need of thee. She is a fen of stagnant waters. Altar, sword, and pen, fireside, the heroic wealth of hall and bower have forfeited their ancient English dower of inward happiness. We are selfish men. Oh, raise us up, return to us again, and give us manners, virtue, freedom, power. Thy soul was like a star, and dwelt apart. Thou hast a voice whose sound was like the sea, pure as the naked heavens, majestic, free. So didst thou travel on life's common way, in cheerful godliness, and yet thy heart the lowliest duties on herself did lay.
This poem was written in the voice of the poet William Wordsworth, addressing the long-deceased English poet John Milton, who has been called the greatest English author. This poem was set in London in 1802, a bleak time in London's history. The poem's central theme is the author's desire to see a better England. It was designed to illustrate the destitute state of London in comparison to its former glory.
The author points out this transition by using specific words such as stagnant to represent the lowliness that England has become. Stagnant could also be interpreted to mean that England is not moving forward. It is also notable that the author uses positive images such as heroic and wealth to describe the England that he loved, and negative images such as lowliness to describe that which it has become.
This poem has a few complete sentences because, as an element of syntax, the author decided on make a few run-on sentences. One could conclude that the author is urgently trying to regain hope and therefore does not have time to complete his sentences. Thus, the tone ends up being one of urgency, seeing as the speaker is hurriedly trying to restore England to its former glory.
The sonnet is structured in such a way that at the word "oh," the focus of the poem shifts to Milton's characteristics, portraying him to be the hero that can save England despite the fact that he is dead. The author's choice of imagery is extensive and has especially deep meaning. One example being the fen, explained in the vocab, which is used to represent England. Many of the images in the rest of the poem can be separated into two categories: the images that represent a risen state and the images that represent a low state. Other notable devices in the poem are the author's use of personification by calling a country a she. The author also uses numerous metaphors and similes to compare such a thing as Milton's voice to the sea.
Cleverly, Wordsworth used the altar, sword, and pen as a metonymy to represent the most exemplary parts of England. The altar representing the church, the sword representing England's tendency to join wars and its strength in them, and the pen being the country's literary strength. There is also reference to the home life of England, portrayed by the fireside, and the hall and bower symbolizes the government part of England.
London 1802 is a romantic sonnet, having the pattern ABBA, ABBA, CDDECE. The poem employs romantic qualities such as feelings or emotions when Wordsworth says inward happiness, selfish men, and cheerful godliness. Another romantic quality included is the supernatural, through claiming that Milton's soul was like a star and that his voice was pure as the naked heavens.
The past is another characteristic that is implied by the idea that a dead man will be able to make a current time better. Imagination ties into this idea with Wordsworth imagining the past London, what it currently is and where it could go if such a poet still lived. Wordsworth desires to see London regain the literary standing it had when other poets were alive, such as John Milton. A vague sense of humanitarianism is touched on here if one assumes that Wordsworth would like to see London improve for the greater good, rather than selfish desire.
Wordsworth mentioned Milton as having the romantic characteristic of the humble life, as seen in the quote saying, "So didst thou travel on life's common way." John Milton II, referred to in the poem as Milton, was a poet and author born December 9, 1608, and died November 8, 1674. His greatest works include Paradise Lost and Areopagitica. In the poem, Milton is referred to as having a cheerful godliness, a description that contrasts with the opinion of poet Samuel Johnson, who described Milton as an acrimonious and surly Republican. William Wordsworth was born in 1770. He was a major English Romantic poet and helped to launch the Romantic Age in England. His magnum opus is generally considered The Prelude, a semi-autobiographical poem of his early years. He served as the Poet Laureate of England from 1843 until his death in 1850.